Section 1. The Cathedral of Seconds. The city of Paris is sleeping under a heavy blanket of white snow. Outside the thick glass of your workshop window, the wind is howling, whipping through the narrow cobblestone streets, freezing the canals, and forcing every sensible soul into their beds. But here, inside these four walls, there is no winter. There is only the warm, steady, golden heartbeat of 1,000 machines. Welcome to the workshop of the Master Watchmaker. It is the year 1750. You are standing in a room that feels less like a shop and more like a cathedral dedicated to a single god, time. Close your eyes for a moment and listen. Do you hear it? It is not silence. It is a symphony. Tick-tock, tick-tock, tick-tock. But it is not just one sound. It is a layered texture of sound. There is the deep, slow, grandfatherly groan of the tall floor clock in the corner, its heavy brass pendulum swinging with the gravity of a judge's gavel. Thump, thump. Then, beneath that, there is the hurried, anxious ticking of the mantle clocks, racing each other to the next minute. And underneath it all, like the buzzing of metallic insects, is the rapid-fire beat of the pocket watches hanging on the wall hooks. The air in here is distinct. It does not smell of the bakery next door or the river nearby. It smells of precision. It is a dry, metallic scent, mixed with the faint, sweet odor of whale oil used for lubrication, and the sharp tang of brass being filed. It is the smell of patience. You are sitting at your workbench. It is a high table made of solid walnut, curved inward to embrace your body, allowing you to get as close as possible to your work. The surface of the bench is a landscape of organized chaos. There are tiny screwdrivers with handles made of mother of pearl. There are tweezers so fine they could pluck a single scale from a moth's wing. There are glass jars filled with screws that look like dust to the naked eye, but under a lens reveal perfect spiral threads. The only light comes from an oil lamp positioned just inches from your hands. It casts a sphere of intense, focused brightness on the object in front of you, leaving the rest of the room in deep, comforting shadow. In this circle of light, the world of kings and wars and poverty disappears. There is only the mechanism. Tonight, you are not just a mechanic. You are a surgeon of the abstract. You are working on a movement that has stopped. A pocket watch encased in gold that has forgotten how to tell time. It lies on a soft velvet cushion, its back open, revealing its guts of brass and steel. It is cold and silent. Your task in the long, quiet hours of this night is to find the ailment, to breathe life back into this dead metal heart, and to make it beat once again in sync with the rotation of the earth. Section 2. The Eye of the Maker. To enter the machine, you must leave your human vision behind. Your eyes, evolved to scan horizons and spot predators, are too clumsy for this world. You need an upgrade. You need the loop. You reach out with a hand that knows exactly where to go without looking. You pick up the loop. It is a simple object, a small black cylinder of turned wood holding a thick, convex lens. It looks unassuming, but it is the key to a secret kingdom. You bring it to your face. You tilt your head slightly, raising your eyebrow, and with a practiced grimace, you wedge the cylinder into your eye socket. The muscles of your face lock it in place. It is not comfortable, but the pressure is a familiar friend. It signals to your brain that it is time to focus. Suddenly, the world changes. The workshop, the snow outside, the oil lamp, the tools, all of it dissolves into a blurry, meaningless wash of colors in your peripheral vision. Your entire universe narrows down to a circle of clarity no larger than a coin. Inside this circle, the pocket watch is no longer a small object held in your hand. It is a landscape. It is a vast metallic terrain of valleys and mountains. The brass base plate stretches out like a golden desert marked by the swirling scratches of the file that smoothed it years ago. To your naked eye, it looked polished, but through the loop, you see the history of its creation in every microscopic groove. You lean in closer. Your nose almost touches the cold metal. The bridge screws, which looked like tiny dots before, now loom above you like massive steel towers. You can see the slot in the head of the screw, slightly deformed from where a previous watchmaker applied too much torque decades ago. You see a single speck of dust resting on a gear tooth. Through the glass, it looks not like dust, but like a boulder that could derail the entire mechanism. This is the eye of the maker. In this mode, you lose all sense of scale. A millimeter becomes a mile. A drop of oil becomes a lake. You hold your breath, not because you are afraid, but because the steam from your exhale might fog the lens and blind you. You are a giant looking down into a clockwork canyon, and the silence here is different. It is the silence of intense, microscopic scrutiny. You are searching for the flaw, the tiny fracture, the dried clot of oil that has stopped time itself. And in this magnification, there is nowhere for the error to hide. Section 3, the dismantling. The diagnosis begins with destruction. To understand the watch, you must take it apart. You must reverse the work of the master who came before you. It is a respectful violation. You select a screwdriver from the rack. The handle is made of worn boxwood, smooth and yellowed from the sweat of your thumb. It feels warm and balanced in your hand. You test the tip against your fingernail. It catches. Good. It is sharp enough. You lower the tool into the circle of light. Through the loop, the tip of the screwdriver looks like a chisel. You guide it toward the first screw, a tiny sentinel of bluedsteel that holds the main bridge in place. This screw has not moved in 50 years. It has settled into the brass, bonded by time and dried oil. You feel the tip slide into the slot of the screw head. Click. A tiny sound, felt more than heard. A perfect fit. Now comes the moment of truth. You apply pressure downward, gentle but firm, to ensure the blade does not slip and scratch the pristine gold plating of the bridge. Then you twist. At first, the screw resists. It fights you. It clings to its position with the stubbornness of old metal. You hold your breath. You increase the torque in your fingertips just a fraction. Then, with a microscopic snap, the bond breaks. The screw surrenders. It begins to turn. Grind, grind, grind. Listen to the friction. It is a dry, high-pitched song of steel turning against brass. As you rotate the handle, the screw rises from its bed, spiraling up like a tiny tower emerging from the earth. You can see the threads now, still bright and shiny, protected from the air for half a century. You lift the screw out with your tweezers. It hangs in the air, a suspended drop of blue metal. You place it into a small porcelain tray divided into compartments. Clink! It lands among its brothers. You repeat this ritual. One by one, the screws are removed. The armor is stripped away. Now, you reach for the bridge, the flat plate of brass that covers the gears. You lift it gently. The oil creates a moment of suction, a sticky reluctance to let go before the seal breaks. The bridge comes away, and suddenly the interior is exposed. The wheels, the pinions, the springs. They lie there, naked and vulnerable under the harsh light of your lamp. The secret architecture of the watch is finally revealed. A city of gears frozen in a silent deadlock. Section 4, the dust of time. Now that the city of gears is laid bare, you see the enemy. It is not rust. Rust is the cancer of iron. But this movement is mostly brass and gold. No, the enemy here is something more insidious. It is the oil itself. Years ago, a previous watchmaker applied a drop of whale oil to these pivots. It was fresh, clear, and fluid. But time changes everything. Oxygen and dust have turned that life-giving lubricant into a thick black sludge. It has coagulated like dried blood in the veins of the machine. It grips the axles. It clogs the teeth. It is the friction that kills the seconds. To save the watch, you must purify it. You reach for a jar of benzine. You unscrew the lid, and a sharp, volatile scent hits your nose. A chemical smell that cuts through the warm, dusty air of the workshop. It is the smell of a clean slate. You pick up the great wheel with your tweezers. It is the largest gear in the train, heavy and majestic. You lower it slowly into the jar of clear liquid. Plop. It sinks to the bottom, resting on the glass. Watch closely. This is where the magic happens. Immediately, the old, hardened oil begins to react with the benzine. It starts to dissolve. Tiny, dark ribbons of grime begin to rise from the pivot holes, swirling upwards like black smoke in a crystal sky. It is a mesmerizing dance of destruction. The history of the watch's neglect is literally floating away. You pick up a cleaning brush. It is an old tool, its bristles made of stiff horsehair, cut short to provide stiffness. You lift the dripping gear out of the bath and place it on a block of pith wood, a soft white sponge-like wood from the elderberry tree. Now the scrubbing begins. Swish, swish, swish. You work the bristles into the gaps between the teeth. You are not just cleaning, you are excavating. You are digging out microscopic particles of brass dust and skin cells that have been trapped there since the days of the French Revolution. You turn the wheel. Swish, swish. You clean the pinion leaves, those tiny steel fins that mesh with the next wheel. They must be mirror bright. Any roughness here will steal energy from the mainspring. You dip the gear back into the benzine for a final rinse. You swirl it around. Clink, clink against the glass. When you pull it out this time, it is transformed. The dull, greasy yellow has vanished. In its place is the brilliant burning gold of polished brass. It catches the lamplight and throws it back at you with a flash. It is clean. It is innocent again. You lay it on a sheet of white tissue paper to dry. The benzine evaporates in seconds, leaving the metal bone dry and ready for a new life. 1 part down, 150 to go. Section 5. The Crimson Heart. Deep inside the brass plates hidden from the eyes of the owner lie the jewels. To the uninitiated, they look like decorations, an unnecessary extravagance of wealth hidden inside a machine. But you know better. These tiny crimson donuts are not there for vanity. They are there for survival. You focus your loupe on the balance cock. There, pressed into the metal, is a ruby. In the 1750s, these were natural stones, mined from the earth, cut and polished with diamond dust. It is corundum, aluminum oxide. It is the second hardest substance on the planet, second only to diamond. Why put a stone inside a watch? Because steel is soft. If a steel axle spins inside a brass hole day after day, year after year, the metal will grind itself away. The hole will widen, the axle will wobble, the time will die. But steel against ruby, that is a different story. The ruby is immortal. It laughs at friction. It offers a surface so smooth, so hard, that the steel glides over it like a skater on ice. You pick up a piece of pegwood. It is a thin stick of orange wood, sharpened to a needlepoint with your knife. You are going to clean the heart of the ruby. You insert the wood into the tiny hole in the center of the stone. Twist, twist. You feel the wood biting into the dirt inside the hole. You pull it out, the tip is black. You cut the wood again to make a fresh point. You repeat the process. Twist, twist, until the wood comes out clean. Now hold the bridge up to the lamp. Look through the jewel. It is a moment of pure beauty. The light passes through the red stone and hits your retina. It glows with a deep, bloody intensity. It is a perfect circle of fire. It is clean. It is ready. This tiny cup of red stone has a sacred duty. It is designed to hold a single, microscopic sphere of oil. Due to surface tension, the oil will sit in that cup, suspended around the spinning axle, never running dry, never leaking out. It is a marvel of physics. You gently blow a puff of air to remove a speck of dust from the surface. The ruby shines back at you, cold and indifferent, waiting for the steel pivot that it will embrace for the next 100 years. Section 6. The Coiled Serpent. Every machine needs a heart, but this watch also needs a stomach. It needs to eat energy and store it for the long winter of the night. This is the job of the mainspring barrel. You pick up the largest wheel in the movement. It is a heavy closed brass drum. It feels dense in your hand, like a loaded weapon. And in a way, it is. Inside this drum lies a potential explosion. You use a specialized tool to pry open the lid of the barrel. Pop! The cap comes off. Inside you see it, the mainspring. It is a long, flat ribbon of tempered steel, coiled tightly upon itself like a sleeping snake. In its relaxed state, it wants to be straight. It wants to stretch out, to break free from this brass prison. But it is forced into a spiral, trapping all that kinetic energy in its metal memory. The smell here is different. It is not the sharp scent of benzine. It is the heavy, earthy smell of graphite grease. Over the years, the old lubricant has turned into a black tar. It makes the coils stick together. Instead of sliding over each other smoothly, they drag. This is why the watch loses time. The snake is sick. You must be careful. If you pull the spring out carelessly, it can explode outward, expanding instantly into a tangled mess of sharp steel wire that can cut your face or vanish across the room. You grip the arbor with pliers and slowly, gently unwind the beast. Once it is out, it lies on your bench, a long blue steel S shape. You take a rag soaked in oil. You run the length of the spring through your fingers, wiping away the black sludge. You feel the cold tension of the metal. It is alive under your touch. You clean it until the steel shines like a mirror in a dark room. Now, the difficult part. You must put it back. You apply a fresh coat of heavy molybdenum grease, a thick, slippery paste that will cushion the coils. Then, you begin to wind it back into the barrel, inch by inch, loop by loop. You are compressing power. You are storing time. When the final tail of the spring clicks into place, you snap the lid back on. The beast is caged once more, waiting for the moment it will be allowed to release its power, one tick at a time. Section 7. The Golden Hierarchy. The cleaning is done. The table is now a grid of sparkling components. It is time to rebuild the city. You take the main plate, the foundation of the watch. It is a solid brass disc dotted with holes and recesses. You place the mainspring barrel back into its home. It sits there, heavy and ominous, a silent reservoir of power. Next comes the great wheel, or the center wheel. This is the king of the gear train. It rotates once every hour, carrying the minute hand on its back. You lower it gently. Its long steel shaft slides through the central hole of the plate. It spins freely, with a satisfying, almost frictionless weight. Then comes the third wheel and the fourth wheel. Each one is smaller than the last. Each one is lighter. This is the mathematics of time made visible. It is a hierarchy of speed. The massive power of the mainspring moves slowly, with brute force. But as it passes through this train of gears, that force is traded for speed. By the time the energy reaches the tiny escape wheel at the end, it will be weak, but it will be fast. It is a transformation of energy, from the strength of an ox to the flutter of a hummingbird. You watch the teeth mesh together. It is a perfect marriage. The brass teeth of the large wheels drive the steel leaves of the small pinions. There is no gap, no play, no hesitation. They are designed to touch, to push, and to release. Now, the most delicate act, the oiling. You cannot just pour oil into a watch. You must apply it with the precision of a surgeon stitching a nerve. You dip a fine oiler, a needle as thin as a hair, into a cup of Mobius oil. You pick up a microscopic sphere of blue liquid. You touch the tip of the oiler to the top of the pivot, right where the steel axle poking through the ruby jewel. Touch. Watch the physics. The oil does not sit on top. Due to capillary action, it is instantly sucked down into the jewel cup. It wraps itself around the shaft, creating a perfect invisible cushion. You repeat this for every wheel. A little too much oil and it will leak and stop the watch. Too little and the metal will scream. It must be perfect. A perfect sphere of protection in a universe of friction. The train is now ready. It is silent, lubricated, and waiting for the pulse of life. Section 8. The Geometry of the Pulse Rod. We have reached the end of the line. The power has traveled from the heavy barrel through the hierarchy of brass gears, gaining speed with every step. Now it crashes against the final gatekeeper, the escape wheel. Look at it closely through your loop. It is different from the others. It is not made of soft, golden brass. It is forged from high-carbon steel, hardened in fire until it is tough enough to cut glass. And look at its shape. It does not have the simple, friendly teeth of the other gears. Its teeth are strange, angular, and aggressive. They look like the fangs of a wolf or the shape of a riding boot. This is not a wheel designed for smooth rotation. It is a wheel designed for violence. This component has the hardest job in the entire machine. It must withstand the full force of the mainspring, holding it back and then releasing it. Holding it back and releasing it. 5 times every second. 18,000 times every hour. For decades. You pick it up with your tweezers. It feels light, almost weightless, yet it is the hardest object on your bench. You carefully lower it into its pivot hole. It slides in with a metallic whisper. You verify its freedom. You spin it with a puff of air. It blurs into a silver ghost, spinning wildly. But inside the watch, it will never spin freely like this. It will live a life of constant interruption. The escape wheel is the translator. It stands at the border between two worlds, the world of physics, energy, and the world of metaphysics, time. Before this wheel, the energy is just a raw, dumb force pushing forward. After this wheel, that force becomes a rhythm. It becomes a countable number. It becomes a second. You observe the tips of the teeth under the highest magnification. They are polished to a mirror finish. They have to be. Any microscopic scratch here would create friction. And friction is the thief of accuracy. You apply a tiny, almost invisible amount of lubricant to the face of the teeth. This is not just oil. It is a shock absorber for the millions of tiny collisions that are about to happen. The wheel sits there, gleaming in the lamplight, a silent steel star waiting to chop eternity into pieces. Section 9. The Rhythm Keeper. If the escape wheel is the violence of the machine, then the pallet fork is the diplomat. It is the negotiator that stands between the raw power of the spring and the delicate swing of the balance. You pick up this component with extreme caution. It is the most fragile part of the watch. Its pivots are thinner than a human hair. If you sneeze while holding it, you could snap them. If you squeeze your tweezers too hard, it will launch into the air and be lost forever in the dark corners of the workshop. It looks like a tiny ship's anchor made of steel. But look at the tips of the anchor. They are not metal, they are stone. 2 rectangular bricks of ruby are cemented onto the steel arms using orange shellac, a resin secreted by the lac bug, heated over a flame until it melts. These are the pallets, the entry pallet and the exit pallet. They are the hammers of the clockwork orchestra. You lower the fork into position next to the escape wheel. It is a tight fit. The geometry here is a matter of microns. You place the bridge over it and screw it down. Now you test the interaction. You move the fork with your oiler. Click. 1 ruby tooth locks against the steel tooth of the escape wheel. You move it the other way. Click. The wheel is released for a fraction of a second, spins and is caught again by the other ruby. Tick, tock, tick, tock. This is the sound of time. It is not a continuous flow. It is a series of impacts. Every tick is the sound of a steel tooth smashing into a ruby wall. Every tock is the sound of the other ruby catching the wheel. It is a violent collision happening 5 times a second. Without the ruby, the steel would wear down in a month. Without the steel, the ruby would shatter. But together they create a rhythm that can outlast a human life. You watch them engage, lock, drop, slide. Lock, drop, slide. It is a mechanical waltz. The pallet fork allows the energy to escape, but only in precise, measured doses. It is the gatekeeper of the second, ensuring that time does not run away from us, but walks beside us, step by steady step. Section 10, the living spiral. The cage is built, the gears are greased, the energy is stored, but the machine is still dead. It lacks a soul. It lacks the ability to regulate itself. Enter the balance wheel. You pick up the final assembly. It dangles from your tweezers, a heavy gold rim suspended by a thread of blue steel so fine it is almost invisible. This thread is the hairspring. It is the most delicate object human hands have ever created. It is thinner than a strand of your own hair, flattened into a ribbon and coiled into a perfect Archimedean spiral. If you touch this spring with your finger, the acid in your sweat will rust it instantly. If you pull it too hard, it will deform, and the watch will never keep time again. It is a nervous system made of metal. You lower the balance onto the movement. The pivot must find a hole that is smaller than a grain of sand, hidden deep inside the mechanism. You cannot see it, you must feel it. You hold your breath, your hand becomes a statue. You lower it, down, down until you feel a tiny, almost imperceptible thud. It has found its home. Now, look at the spiral. It sits there, a blue labyrinth inside a golden circle. This spring is the lung of the watch. When it moves, it will expand and contract, breathing in and out. It is this breathing that divides the rush of time into equal melodic parts. Without it, the mainspring would unwind in seconds. With it, the energy is tamed. You tighten the final screw on the balance cock. The bridge clamps down. The assembly is secure. The watch is now fully assembled. It is a complete universe of 150 parts, all resting in their places, waiting for the spark of creation. The room is silent. The snow is still falling outside. The moment of truth has arrived. Section 11, the first breath. The watch is assembled. The oil is fresh. The screws are tight, but it is motionless. It is a perfect sculpture of potential energy, frozen in time. It needs a spark. It needs a nudge from the creator. You lean in close, your breath warming the cold air above the bench. You pick up a soft quill, or perhaps you just use the gentle pressure of the air itself. You aim for the rim of the golden balance wheel. Nudge. You give it a tiny push, just a whisper of force. And then the miracle happens. The wheel wakes up. It swings sluggishly to the left. The blue hairspring expands, opening its metal lungs. The ruby pin on the roller table hits the pallet fork. Click. The fork snaps over, releasing the escape wheel. The escape wheel gives the pallet a tiny kick of energy. That kick travels back to the balance wheel. It pushes it. The wheel swings back to the right. Clack! Another tooth is released. Another kick of energy. At first, the movement is weak. The wheel only rotates a few degrees. It looks like it is shivering, trying to shake off the cold of the metal. But with every tick and every tock, it feeds on the power of the mainspring. The amplitude grows. The swing gets wider, stronger, more confident, from 90 degrees to 180 degrees to 270 degrees. The wheel becomes a blur of gold. The hairspring breathes in and out with a perfect, mesmerizing rhythm. The dead machine has become a living entity. And then you hear it. The sound that was absent for so long. Tick, tock, tick, tock. It is a strong, healthy heartbeat. It is crisp, metallic, and regular. It resonates through the wooden workbench, up your arms, and into your own bones. You let out a sigh of relief. You are no longer just a mechanic. You are a parent watching your child take its first step. The watch is alive. Section 12. The tuning of the orchestra. The heart is beating, but is it beating true? A watch that runs is a machine. A watch that keeps perfect time is an instrument. Now begins the art of regulation. You look at the regulator on top of the balance cock. It is a tiny steel arm pointing like a compass needle to a scale engraved on the metal. On one side, there is an F for fast. On the other, an S for slow. This is the steering wheel of time. The physics is simple, yet profound. By moving this arm, you are sliding microscopic pins along the length of the blue hairspring. You are effectively changing the length of the spring. Think of a violin string. If you shorten the string, the pitch gets higher and the vibration gets faster. If you lengthen it, the sound deepens and slows down. The hairspring is the string of this violin. You listen to the beat. Tick, tock, tick, tock. To the untrained ear, it sounds perfect, but your ear has been trained by decades of silence. You hear a slight hurry, a nervousness. The watch is galloping. It is running fast. If you leave it like this by tomorrow morning, it will be 5 minutes ahead of the sun. It will lie to its owner. You pick up a wooden stick. You do not use metal here, for metal might slip and scratch the bridge. You place the wood against the side of the regulator arm. Now you must move it. But how much? Not an inch. Not a millimeter. You need to move it the width of a breath. You need to move it an amount that is invisible to the eye, but felt by the soul. You apply pressure. You hold your breath to stop your own pulse from shaking your hand. You push. Nudge. Did it move? You check with the loop. Yes. The needle has shifted perhaps a hair's breadth towards the S. You listen again. Tick, tock, tick, tock. The rhythm has changed. It is calmer now. It is deeper. It matches the slow, steady swing of the grandfather clock standing in the corner of the room. The master clock, against which all others are judged. You have tuned the orchestra. The chaos of the raw mechanics has been tamed into the harmony of accuracy. Section 13. The porcelain mask. The machine is alive. The heart is beating, but it is naked. The complex dance of brass gears and steel springs is too industrial, too chaotic for the eyes of a gentleman. It must be dressed. It must wear a mask. You open a velvet-lined drawer and retrieve the dial. It is a disc of pure, blinding white. In the dim light of the workshop, it glows like a full moon. This is not paint on metal. This is grand faux enamel. To create this, a copper disc was dusted with powdered glass and baked in a kiln at 800 degrees Celsius. It was burned by fire until the glass melted and fused with the metal, creating a surface that is harder than rock, but smooth as milk. It is a frozen puddle of glass. You hold it by the edges, your fingers trembling slightly. You must. This is the most dangerous moment of the assembly. Enamel is eternal. It will never fade, never yellow, never rust. 1,000 years from now, it will look exactly as it does tonight, but it has one weakness. It is brittle. If you drop it, it will not dent. It will shatter into 1,000 irreversible shards. If you tighten a screw too hard against it, it will crack like a frozen lake under a heavy step. You inspect the surface. At the number 77, there is a faint hairline. A tiny spiderweb fracture running through the white. You do not fix this. You cannot fix this. It is a scar from the past, perhaps from when the watch was dropped by a nervous suitor or a stumbling soldier. It is part of the watch's story. You see the Roman numerals painted in black ink. Under the loupe, you can see the brushstrokes of the artist who painted them decades ago. The ink is slightly raised, sitting proud on top of the glossy white. It is a stark contrast, the deepest black against the purest white. Carefully, so very carefully, you align the feet of the dial, tiny copper pins on the back, with the holes in the movement. You lower it down. It hovers over the beating heart of the watch. Click. It settles into place. The brass gears, the ruby jewels, the spinning balance, all of them vanish beneath the white snow. The chaos is hidden. The noise is muffled. Now the watch looks calm. It looks serene. It is ready to face the world with a polite porcelain smile, hiding the frantic labor that happens beneath its skin. Section 14, the bluedsteel pointers. The stage is set. The white porcelain floor is laid out, covering the churning machinery below. Now, we must introduce the dancers. You look into a small wooden box labeled Eggy, hands. Inside, resting on cotton wool, are two slivers of metal. They are not gold, for gold would get lost against the brass of the movement. They are not plain steel, which would rust and look dull against the bright white dial. They are something else entirely. They are bluedsteel. Decades ago, a master craftsman took these tiny pieces of raw gray steel and placed them on a bed of brass filings over an open flame. He watched them like a hawk. As the steel heated, it began to oxidize. It turned yellow, then straw, then purple, and finally, for just a few seconds, it reached this specific temperature, about 300 degrees Celsius. At that precise moment, it turned this magnificent, deep, iridescent cornflower blue. It is not paint. It is the color of heat itself, trapped in the metal skin. You pick up the hour hand first. It is shorter, stouter, the slower sibling. It is incredibly thin, fragile as a dry leaf. If you breathe on it too hard, it might bend. You balance it on the tip of your tweezers. You guide it over the center hole of the dial. Protruding from that hole is the top of the hour wheel shaft. You place the hub of the hand onto the shaft. It is a friction fit. There are no screws here. It must be tight enough to grip, but loose enough not to crush the hollow tube. You take your hand setting tool, a hollow metal pen with a nylon tip. You place it over the hand hub. You hold your breath. You are pushing down directly onto the heart of the watch through the fragile enamel dial. Too much pressure and the dial cracks, or the jewel on the other side shatters. Too little and the hand will fall off next week. Press. You feel a tiny, yielding resistance as the metal sleeve grips the brass post. It is seated. Next, the minute hand. Longer, more elegant, reaching all the way to the outer minute track. You align it perfectly at the 12 o'clock position, directly covering the hour hand. You repeat the terrifying ritual. Press. It is done. The hands are set. They sit there, frozen at high noon. Two indigo pointers waiting for the command to begin their endless chase around the white arena. Section 15, the crystal dome. The hands are set. The face is smiling, but the watch is still vulnerable. The air in this room is filled with invisible enemies. Moisture, lint, tobacco smoke. If a single particle lands on the dial now, it will be trapped there for a generation, a permanent blemish on perfection. It is time to seal the tomb. You reach for the crystal. In the 18th century, this is not synthetic sapphire or plastic. It is real mineral glass, blown by fire and polished by sand. It is not flat like a modern window. It is a high dome, a bubble of transparency designed to vault over the delicate hands without touching them. You hold the glass up to the candle. You are looking for flaws, bubbles, scratches, oily fingerprints. It must be invisible. It must be nothing, so that the something beneath it can be seen. You take a piece of chamois leather, soft yellow duskin. You breathe gently onto the concave side of the glass. The moisture fogs it up for a second. Then you wipe, round and round. Friction is the cleaner. You wipe until the glass squeaks. Squeak. Squeak. It is the sound of absolute cleanliness. Now you pick up the bezel. This is the brass ring that holds the glass. You press the crystal into the groove of the bezel. It is a tight fit. It relies on the tension of the metal to hold the stone. You bring the bezel over the watch. You hover it just millimeters above the dial. This is the point of no return. You check one last time for dust. A single speck of white lint on the black number 12. You blow it away with a sharp puff of air. Gone. Quickly, before another speck can land, you press the bezel down onto the main case. You push with your thumbs. You need force, but controlled force. Snap. A sharp, definitive metallic crack. The bezel snaps into its catch. The seal is formed. The atmosphere inside the watch is now separated from the atmosphere of the room. The air inside that little dome will remain unchanged while the seasons turn outside the window. You run your thumb over the smooth curve of the glass. It feels cool and slick. The hands are safe now. The time is protected. Section 16, the golden mirror. The mechanism is perfect. The face is pristine. The glass is sealed. But the watch is not yet ready for the pocket of a king. The outer shell, the heavy case of 18-karat gold, is dull. It is covered in the microscopic fingerprints of your labor, the sweat of your brow, and the fine dust of the workshop. It looks tired. It needs to shine. You take a block of jeweler's rouge. It is a hard, clay-like brick of ferric oxide, red as dried blood. This is the finest abrasive known to man. It does not cut the metal, it burnishes it. It moves the atoms of gold around until they form a flat, reflective plane. You rub a piece of soft leather onto the rouge block until the leather turns crimson. Then, you cradle the watch in your left hand, protecting the glass with your palm. With your right hand, you begin to polish the back of the case. Rub, rub, rub. The motion is circular, constant, monotonous. You apply pressure. You feel the heat building up under the cloth. Friction creates heat. The gold is getting warm, almost hot to the touch. It is waking up. At first, the rouge leaves a greasy red smear on the metal. It looks messy. It looks like you are ruining it. But you trust the process. You keep rubbing. The heat softens the surface just enough. You take a clean part of the cloth and wipe away the red residue. And there it is, the mirror. The dull yellow metal has vanished. In its place is a liquid pool of gold. It is so polished, so smooth that it disappears. All you can see is the reflection of the world around it. You see the flame of your oil lamp, perfectly duplicated in the gold. You see the wooden beams of the ceiling. And for a brief moment, you see your own eye, magnified and distorted in the curve of the case. You see the tiredness in that eye, the wrinkles of concentration. The gold has become a witness to your labor. You polish the rim, you polish the bow. You polish until the watch feels slippery in your hands like a bar of wet soap. It is no longer just metal. It is light in solid form. Section 17, the key to time. The watch is beautiful, but without you, it is helpless. It cannot feed itself. It relies on its master to give it life, once every day, at the same hour. It is a symbiotic relationship between man and machine. You reach for the key. It is not a simple tool. It is a piece of jewelry in its own right. It is a heavy T-shaped instrument, cast in solid gold and inlaid with iron patterns. It feels cold and substantial between your thumb and forefinger. It has seen the hands of fathers and sons passed down through generations. You turn the watch over in your palm. The back case is smooth and warm. There in the center is a small hole, a portal to the mainspring barrel we cleaned hours ago. You guide the square tip of the key into the hole. You feel around blindly for a moment, metal searching for metal until clunk. It slots home. The key is now connected to the arbor of the barrel. Now you turn. Ratchet, ratchet, ratchet. Listen to that sound. It is the crisp, sharp click of the click spring preventing the barrel from unwinding. Each click represents a specific amount of time stored. Click 1 hour, click 2 hours, click 3 hours. You feel the resistance growing in your fingers. The spring inside is tightening. The coiled serpent is waking up, protesting against the confinement. You must be careful now. This is a conversation, not a fight. If you force it, the chain will snap. You need to feel the limit. One last turn. The resistance becomes solid. The spring is full. You stop. You gently pull the key out. The silence returns, but it is different now. It is a charged silence. The watch is full of potential, holding 24 hours of future history inside its golden belly. Section 18, the golden tether. A pocket watch without a chain is a tragedy waiting to happen. Gravity is a cruel mistress. One slip of the fingers, one stumble on the cobblestones, and months of work could end in the heartbreaking sound of shattering glass. The watch needs an anchor. It needs a tether. You pick up the Albert chain. It is a heavy, serpentine length of gold links, named after the prince consort who made them fashionable. It flows through your fingers like liquid metal, cool and smooth. It has a satisfying weight to it. This is not hollow jewelry. It is solid. It is meant to last as long as the watch itself. You inspect the clasp at the end of the chain. It is a swivel clasp designed to rotate 360 degrees so the chain never gets twisted. You pull back the tiny trigger of the clasp. Snick, the mouth of the clasp opens. It is hungry for the watch. You bring the watch closer. You locate the bow, the circular ring at the very top of the case stem. You hook the open clasp through the bow. Click. You release the trigger. The clasp snaps shut. You give it a gentle tug to test the connection. It holds. The bond is secure. The watch is no longer an isolated island. It is now connected to something larger. When the owner wears it, the T-bar at the other end of the chain will go through a buttonhole in his waistcoat, securing the time to his very body. The chain acts as an umbilical cord, linking the mechanical heartbeat of the watch to the biological heartbeat of the man. You coil the chain around the watch on the table. Gold on gold. It looks complete. It looks protected. Section 19, the Velvet Sanctuary. The work is done. The resurrection is complete. Now the patient must rest. You cannot simply leave a masterpiece like this sitting on a hard wooden table, exposed to the cold night air. It requires a home. You reach for the presentation box. It is a work of art in itself. Crafted from old-growth mahogany, it smells of forests and beeswax. The wood grain swirls like dark smoke, polished to a deep, dark shine that speaks of wealth and taste. You run your fingers over the lid. You feel the smoothness of the varnish. You lift the lid. The hinges whisper softly, creak. Inside, it is a different world. It is lined with deep royal blue velvet. The fabric is thick, soft, and inviting. It is designed to cradle the metal, to protect it from shocks, to keep it warm. You pick up the watch by its chain. It swings gently, a pendulum of gold. You lower it into the box. The velvet accepts it. The watch sinks slightly into the plush cushion, fitting perfectly into the circular indentation made just for it. It looks comfortable there. It looks regal. You carefully coil the gold chain around the watch, arranging the links so they do not scratch the crystal. The metal gleams against the dark blue fabric. It is a stunning contrast. Warm gold against cool blue. Hard metal against soft silk. You look at it one last time. The white face is staring up at you. The bluedsteel hands are ticking away the seconds. Tick, tick, tick. The sound is muffled now by the velvet, softer, more intimate. It is no longer a machine on a workbench. It is a treasure in a chest. You lower the lid. Thump. The box closes with a solid, satisfying sound. The watch disappears into darkness, safe and sound, ready for its journey home. Section 20. The Extinguished Flame. The task is finished. The scattered pieces of metal have become a living machine once more. The chaotic table is tidy again. The tools are back in their racks. The oil is capped. The dust is swept away. You stand up from your stool. Your back creaks slightly, a reminder of the hours you have spent hunched over the microscopic world. You stretch your arms. The air in the room has grown colder. The fire in the hearth has died down to glowing embers, casting a faint pulsing red light on the floorboards. Outside, the storm has passed. The wind no longer howls. There is only the soft, muffled silence of a city buried under fresh snow. It is the deep silence of the early hours, when even the ghosts are asleep. You look at the mahogany box one last time. Inside that wooden shell, the heart of gold continues to beat. Tick, tick, tick. It does not need you anymore. It is independent. It is alive. You have done your duty as the guardian of time. You reach for the brass knob of the oil lamp. The flame flickers, dancing one last time on the polished wood of the workbench. You lean in. You take a deep breath. Whoosh, you blow it out. The light vanishes instantly. The world plunges into darkness. For a moment, you are blind. Then slowly, your eyes adjust. A pale blue shaft of moonlight cuts through the window, illuminating the drifting ribbon of white smoke rising from the wick. It smells of burnt oil and peace. You are alone in the dark, but you are not lonely. You are surrounded by the steady, rhythmic ticking of 100 clocks on the walls. They are watching over you. They are singing you a lullaby. The work is done. The time has come to rest. Sleep well, Master Watchmaker. Good night.